Welcome to Future Consideration, SB Nation's NFL Draft Show. Over there is Ryan. He knows a lot about college football players.
I watch too much college football. That's Matt Ufford. Matt, you have watched more than one Tampa Bay Buccaneers game in the last 2 years.
I regret nothing.
You should.
We'll start things off, as we do every week, with a review of Mocking the Draft's mock draft. And once again, we see the same players in the top 5 positions or so. There's only so much we can say about Jameis Winston going #1 to the Buccaneers.
Who's that? I've never heard of him.
Yes. We never talk about the noise.
Yeah, not a bit.
So let's go jump outside the top 5
Okay.
and go straight to number 6, where Bud Dupree is projected to join the New York Jets.
Yes. Now, his measurables jump off the charts. He's fast, he's big, he's super agile. He had like a 42-inch vertical leap or something.
He's named Bud.
He's named Bud. His nickname is Bud because his real name is Alvin.
I go by Bud.
That's pretty good. I'd say it's maybe second-round nickname.
Yeah. And you can't pass up a player from a football powerhouse like Kentucky.
Like the Kentucky Wildcats. Yeah, I mean, the big question with him is, can you get him consistently doing all of the things that you think he can do? I don't know if the Jets are the team to necessarily milk all of the talent out of a player that they would like to, but you know, you could do worse than drafting somebody who's got that high of a ceiling, I think.
All right. Moving on to number 11, Trey Waynes, the cornerback out of Michigan State, projected to the Vikings. What are your thoughts on Mr. Trey Waynes?
So what I like about Trey Waynes is that he's great at bump and run coverage, and he is not afraid to be put out on an island by himself deep down the field. So when you can get somebody like that who has he's got decent size, he's got a ton of speed, he ran I think a 4.3 40 at his pro day. He is somebody who you say, okay, we can bring him in and he can learn the system, but he has all the physical tools. The one issue with him, he's a little handsy, and that might not go over well, you know, in this new NFL where handsiness from a defensive back is a quick way to get a lot of penalty flags.
Seems to work for Brandon Browner, though. At 18, Andrus Peat out of Stanford, offensive line U, going to Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a ton of experience as a starter at Stanford, 27 games under his belt there. About all of his last season, he was the starting left tackle for the Cardinal. He has a lot of strength, and he's a very smart player. Especially, I think one thing people like about offensive linemen who come out of Stanford is they play in this pro-style offense, and they learn a lot of the mental skills that you need from an offensive lineman at the next level. You know, it's interesting to see what they're going to do in Kansas City because
they did just spend a #1 pick on Eric Fisher recently, but Fisher has not played very well.
No, he hasn't. So I don't know if it's sort of a once burned kind of thing there, but we'll find out.
Yes, and 20, DJ Humphries from Florida to the Eagles. A tackle is not the biggest position of need for the Eagles.
No, I mean, so here's the logic I see for this pick if it happens. DJ Humphries is probably the player who has helped his stock the most from the end of the college football season until today. He's put on a lot of weight. He had a very nice combine. He's the kind of guy who, you know, not too long ago people were saying, why is DJ Humphries coming out at all? And now he's proven a lot of those people wrong. So it might be one of those where the Eagles say, this is a guy who maybe has the talent to be a really talented starting offensive lineman for 7-8 years. Should we just go and get that depth now that allows us to maybe make some moves that are more salary cap savvy down the line? Who knows?
Personally, with Jason Peters and Lane Johnson on the team already playing tackle, and you're in desperate need of a wide receiver in a wide receiver-rich draft, you might go with a wide receiver.
Chip Kelly can turn like an old bicycle.
Not to naysay, but that's where I'd be going. Okay. And let's wrap up the mock draft talk with the pick that I actually really like, even though he had the bad knee injury. Todd Gurley of Georgia going to the Dallas Cowboys.
Todd Gurley, fast, strong, and I like this pick because it suggests that the Cowboys aren't bold enough to sign Greg Hardy and then go get Adrian Peterson. I think they'll take that back.
You think Jerry Jones is gonna back down from that?
No.
You don't have the balls to do it, Jerry Jones.
That is a good way to get shot right in the foot.
That is all for our review of Mocking the Draft's mock draft this week. Be sure to check out the full mock draft at sbnation.com. Now let's move on. Let's talk about inside linebackers / middle linebackers in the draft. Who are your favorite LBs?
This is really tough because we've got Eric Kendricks from UCLA as our #1 inside linebacker. He is so instinctive. He has a really good sense of watching the play unfold and then deciding where he needs to be and the best route to get there. He's very good sideline to sideline. The one big problem with Eric Kendricks is that he's not big. He's not very tall. He's not that hefty at this point. And if you look back at the history of guys who play inside linebacker who don't have that kind of size, you're talking about what? London Fletcher, Zach Thomas, Al Wilson. It's not like a long list.
Lofa Tatupu,
yeah.
Who had 3 very good years.
Right. So there is that question of, is he suited to play this position long term at that sort of smaller size right now?
So your number 2 is Paul Dawson out of TCU.
Right.
A fierce player.
Yeah, he's super aggressive. He also is a little bit on the small size, but he plays with such aggression that it kind of feels like he's 3 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier. The big problem with Paul Dawson is that sort of the rumors echoing through echoing through the NFL
Let's
draft
definitely pass
atmosphere.
these around.
These are totally valuable. Is that he's not a great film guy. He's not that loved by his coaches and fellow players. So there is a question of, are you going to bring this guy in? And if he's not in the right locker room, or if he doesn't have his head screwed on straight, he's going to wash out of the league in 3 years.
So you're saying he shouldn't go to the Raiders?
Nobody should go to the Raiders.
At number 3, you've got Stephon Anthony out of Clemson.
Right. So here's a guy who has no size problems. 6'3", 240 pounds.
Like me.
And he ran a 4.5 at the combine.
That's fast for a large
that's
man.
insane. But the thing about Stephon Anthony is that he's he's like the button masher of linebackers, in that you're like, oh, he's doing all this cool stuff. I don't know if he necessarily knows what he's doing. He has a tendency to take the wrong path or read the play wrong or sort of be out of position. You hope those are things that you can teach, but you also sort of say he hasn't learned them at this point. So are we ever going to see him take that raw physical ability, which is crazy, and turn it into smart, productive play all the time on the field?
I've had enough of you denigrating a Clemson education.
I'm sorry.
At number 4, a guy who's hard to block, Denzel Perryman from Miami.
Yeah, very, yeah, it's all about the U, obviously. Very stout, very brutal against the run is how I would say. The red flag with Denzel Perryman is that he's not reliable in pass coverage. So, I mean, it's that thing where you say, is he going to get better at that, or is he going to be the linebacker that every third down with more than 3 yards to gain, he's trotting off the field?
Yeah. And rounding out the top 5, Benardrick McKinney from Mississippi State. Real tough defensive unit.
Yes. So where we started off talking about guys who might be too small to play inside linebacker, now we're going in the opposite direction. And the question is Benardrick McKinney too big? He's 6'4", and while that's super helpful for getting in the way of passing lanes and things like that, it also kind of works against him. He's got a very high center of gravity. It kind of throws off his ability to shift his feet and move side to side sometimes. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the lesson is
Brian Urlacher type.
Nobody's a Brian Urlacher. Brian Urlacher is one of a kind, and if you say otherwise, he'll come here and hurt you. So.
All right, those are Ryan Nanny's top 5 inside/middle linebackers in the draft. Let's move on and talk about some AFC East team needs, starting with the team at the top of the division. Nothing else. They did not win anything else.
They elected not to play the postseason.
Terrible story for them. Yeah. But I would say defensive tackle, they need to replace Vince Wilfork. If not with a human, then with a large movable block of clay.
I think if you like grafted a human to a cow or something like that, you'd get roughly the same sort of production. Aside
from that, though, Dominic Easley's knee remains a question, and Silver Sealinga is recovering from foot surgery, I believe. Not being used with Silver Surfer. We've established that. They're different people. Also, at cornerback, their 2 biggest names, Darrelle Revis and Brandon Brown, are left in free agency. Yeah. They still have a lot of cornerbacks on the roster, but there's...
and not cornerbacks you would necessarily get excited about.
Yes. Some talent from the draft might be nice to get there.
We also feel like maybe wide receiver would be something they could look at, but I don't know. They're the Patriots. You sort of feel like they can throw any wide receiver into that system and they'll get 700 yards out of it.
Yeah, and I'd say maybe an offensive guard. Their line was shaky to begin the year last year, And Dan Connolly's a free agent. It's unsure whether he's going to be coming back. So maybe some young, cheap talent to fill out the offensive line.
I don't think Tom Brady would turn down more depth on the offensive line.
Yeah, you don't want to protect Tom Brady. He's only 38 years old now.
He can jump off cliffs. He can do anything.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
And pretty, too.
So are you, buddy.
You're too kind. All right, Buffalo Bills.
Yes.
This is a team with a ton of talent in certain positions. Not so much a quarterback.
Not so much a quarterback.
Which is crazy because they don't need somebody great at quarterback. They've got Sammy Watkins, Percy Harvin, LaShawn McCoy. You really just need someone mediocre. They really just, ironically, need Ryan Fitzpatrick.
We need you back, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Save us. Yeah, I mean, the other issue that they have is offensive line as well. They are a team that Football Outsiders has ranked very, very poorly in adjusted line yards. So, it's one of those things where if you have all this skill position talent, but you don't have an offensive line that can help you, move the ball, running it, or protect whoever is at quarterback, God knows who that's going to be going forward, you're sort of dealing yourself out of the hand in a weird way.
Yeah, they don't have a ton of talent. They drafted a couple potential right tackles last year, Chantrell Henderson and Cyrus Kwanjo.
Yeah.
They both had very disappointing rookie seasons.
Yeah.
They signed Richie Incognito.
Yay!
He's no red flags on that one.
He's gonna be
and
fun.
then elsewhere, they've got Chris Williams. Is a 320-pound man who's entering his 30s and has back problems.
We all been there.
Yeah, it doesn't usually get better from there. And Cyril Richardson is also, not a very, very talented player on your interior line. So, they need some more talent. Maybe another safety.
It feels like they're close, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is a team that's just missing that modestly important position of quarterback.
God, it's so weird that we're saying, oh, well, remember when they had Kyle Orton? At least he was the steadying force. Football makes no
and now
sense.
they have the steadying force of Rex Ryan.
Yay.
Let's move on.
Okay.
The Miami Dolphins. Let's talk about their wide receiver situation. Out. Mike Wallace. Out. Brian Hartline. Out. Brandon Gibson. They've got Kenny Stills.
Yeah.
So that's.
Yeah.
But I would say maybe another wide receiver.
Between the wideouts and Charles Clay leaving, that's 16 of their 27 receiving touchdowns that are unaccounted for now going forward.
Oh, that's not good.
That is not good. I mean, say what you want about Mike Wallace and him being very Mike Wallace in his last year in Miami, but he was at least somebody who they could count on to get the ball, to stretch the field, and they're going to have to figure out who that's going to be because we know Ryan Tannehill has already taken a lot of hits in his career. If they don't get a wide receiver who can sort of get out of breaks, who they can reliably get the ball to quickly, he's going to have another 40-sack season, and I don't think that's what he wants. I don't want to speak for him.
Speaking of protecting Ryan Tannehill, they could use to improve their guard position.
Yep.
Really, both left guard and right guard. Mike Pouncey's going to be moving back to center. And then they've got just 2 holes that they should fill through the draft.
That would be a good idea.
Free agency, however. And then the running back situation is kind of odd. Lamar Miller is your starter. They've got Noshawn Moreno coming back from injury. But, wouldn't it be nice to have like a young, fresh guy to
somebody
step
that
in?
you can feel like, oh, hey, he is the guy going forward. Because right now, Lamar Miller is going into his contract year, and I don't think that he's necessarily been so good that you say, oh yeah, we want to like lock up Lamar Miller for the next 3 years.
I don't think anyone is saying that.
No.
All right, let's go move on and finish up with the New York Jets. Another team that is kind of similar to the Bills, both in recent history and also their quarterback situation, where it's a potentially talented team that has a question mark at quarterback. Yes, you have Ryan Fitzpatrick, but he's not really the solution you're looking for. And of course, Geno Smith showed a little bit of promise, but are any of those?
He showed a lot of it of not promise too.
He showed a lot more of not promise than promise. Yeah. So it would be great to have like a franchise quarterback, but then no, not everybody gets one.
I don't think the Jets have had one in a long, long time, but.
So let's talk about running back then. Chris Ivory is there. He's fine.
What a compliment. Congratulations, Chris Ivory. You exist.
Chris Johnson has left town, and that's I suppose is addition by subtraction, but you still need to fill a body there, so they can draft a running back. At guard, they did acquire James Carpenter in free agency. He's good at run blocking, not so much in pass pro. They could stand to upgrade at guard. And outside linebacker, they've got a steady trio to rotate through, but they're aging and or entering contract years, so maybe a young, fast guy off the edge who is good at blitzing in a Todd Bowles system.
Yeah, especially because I don't think anybody expects the Jets to go from Rex Ryan to Bowles and start being an offensive juggernaut all of a sudden, so why not shore up some of that defensive depth if you can, and then recognize that you're going to have to take a little more time to build things up on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah. Oh, Jets.
But that would suggest patience, which is not the Jets' way.
Oh, or the New York media's for that matter. All right, that recaps the AFC East team needs, and that finishes up another wildly fun episode of Future Consideration. Join us again next week